Welcome to the Modern Assyrian program on ANB SAT. My name is Carmen Morad. We are especially thrilled today to have as our guest our esteemed Congressman Jeff Denham from the 10th District. Jeffrey John Denham was born on July 29, 1967 in Hawthorne, California. Congressman Jeff Denham represents the 10th District of California in the U.S. House of Representatives, which includes all of Stanislaus County and part of San Joaquin County. He was first elected to Congress in 2010 and is currently serving a fourth term in the 115th Congress. Representative Denham's public service career began with the U.S. Air Force, where he served for 16 years between active duty and reserve status. He fought in Operation Desert Storm and Operation Restore Hope in Iraq and Somalia, respectively. After graduating from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Representative Denham worked in the agriculture industry as an almond rancher and entrepreneur. He understands the critical importance of agriculture business in cultivating California's economy and maintaining employment. In his work as a California State Senator from 2002 to 2010, Representative Denham focused on balancing runaway spending in California and protecting taxpayer dollars from wasteful state projects. He was a proven and courageous leader in the California Senate, where he was the subject of an unsuccessful recall attempt for his refusal to vote on irresponsible budget proposals. First and foremost, Representative Denham is a family man. Jeff and Sonia Denham have been married for 24 years and they have 2 children, Austin and Samantha. In his position as a U.S. Congressman, Representative Denham remains focused on representing the long-term interests of California's agriculture businesses, finding a solution to the long struggle over water storage and conveyance, transportation interests in California, and fighting for America's heroic veterans. He is also an advocate for a top-to-bottom approach to reform for our broken immigration system. Representative Denham serves on 3 committees in the House of Representatives, perfectly situating him to address key concerns among Central Valley residents. Through participation in committee hearings and votes, Representative Denham will continue to focus on federal agriculture policy and reform, infrastructure development, and management of water resources. The House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has jurisdiction over all Department of Transportation and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers programs, among others. The House Committee on Agriculture has jurisdiction over Department of Agriculture, also known as the USDA programs, General Farm Commodities and Risk Management, Conservation, Energy and Forestry, Horticulture, Research, Biotechnology and Foreign Agriculture, Livestock, Rural Development and Farm Credit, among other programs. The House Committee on Natural Resources considers legislation about American energy production, mineral lands and mining, fisheries and wildlife, public lands, oceans, Native Americans, irrigation, and reclamation. Representative Denham also chairs several caucuses, including the California Public Higher Education Caucus, Congressional Assyrian Caucus, Congressional Pollinator Protection Caucus, Congressional Veterans Job Caucus, and Immigrant Service Member and Veterans Caucus. Welcome, Congressman.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much on this special day, being Veterans Day, for accepting our invitation to be here, especially as a veteran yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you a few questions, Congressman, about your special relationship that you have with the Assyrian community in your district as your constituents. For the past few years that you've been elected in office, what has been the issues that seem to be the most important to your constituents, especially the Assyrian community?
A very unique set of issues with all the turmoil, all the challenges that we see in the Middle East right now. Many Assyrians still have relatives in Syria, in Iraq, and because they're Christians, we see them targeted, persecuted, and many that are forced to flee their homes. So a lot of different issues, making sure that those that are able to stay in their homes, to be able to get them food, supplies. I know that there are and will continue to be Assyrians that are not only reaching out but donating items. We need to make sure they get sent over and in the right hands. But ultimately, if their families are in danger, we want to make sure that they're able to get to either to a refugee camp, or more importantly, get them here onto U.S. soil where they can actually be with family members. So a lot of very critical and important issues, but issues that can be very unique to the Assyrian population.
Absolutely. Congressman Denham, through the years, you have attended many of our events in the 10th District, especially Stanislaus County, and of course where you're from in Turlock. Turlock has a very special, unique history, over 100 years actually, for Assyrians. And you've attended our festivals, our 70th anniversary of the Assyrian-American Civic Club. And as you have attended our churches, I've had the privilege of being there, where you were given certain gifts that I'm sure you have in your office.
I do, yes.
But I especially want to talk to you about the Assyrian Festival in 2016, where we honored and you helped us recognize the late Hank Adams.
Hank Adams, yeah. Very special individual, an amazing story. His history, I think, is an inspiration for all of Assyrians, their commitment to this country and the willingness to be able to serve. Hank put his life on the line for our country, and it was very humbling to honor him that day.
Thank you. Just for our viewers, just to let them know, Hank, or Henry Adams, was the late son of the Reverend Dr. Isaac Adams, who was our first settler in Turlock back in 1911. And a very unique history of how Assyrians actually came to the Turlock area, Stanislaus County, as immigrants, as farmers, and how his son, who was born in Turlock, actually raised awareness on the importance of serving in the armed forces.
Yeah.
And what a proud moment that was, that we honored him. Of course, he has passed, and you did something amazing, which really touched our heart and touched the family of Hank Adams, where you honored him on the floor of the House of Representatives. Tell us a little bit about that.
Just such a special history. I wanted to make sure I shared it with the rest of the country and ultimately the rest of the world. So I got up on the House floor. I spoke about his history and his sacrifice and willingness to serve our country. And then I presented that at his home, and it was a very, some of the opportunities that I have are very humbling for me. So to be able to go into Hank's home and present that to his wife was pretty special.
That was very special. And it's moments like this, Congressman Denham, that we promote through our viewers and members of our community the importance of civic engagement, the importance of owning this this special citizenship, as your office has gone above and beyond your staff with immigration issues, with naturalization issues, and helping the refugees become citizens of this great country.
Yeah.
And we have that responsibility through our media to raise awareness on the fact that how important it is to give back,
Yeah.
how important it is to be involved.
Very. It's important to assimilate. I would say it's more important to be part of the community and to serve your community, to serve your neighbor, to be involved in. We have many Assyrians serving at high levels in government, involved in city councils, and I think that's important to have a voice in your city, in your community, as well as volunteering to serve others. But obviously, the biggest way to serve, the greatest act of patriotism is, as Hank did, to be able to serve the new country that you know and love, and want to protect the freedoms that, most people immigrate to this country because of our great experiment in democracy. The many freedoms that we have here that are unlike any other country around the world, and we take those freedoms. They're very important to us. So being able to serve in the military and protect those freedoms is something extremely special, and to see the patriotism of so many Assyrians that have been willing to step up and serve our country is pretty special.
Absolutely. What I would like to also, before we move on any further, I would like to thank you for your service. You served in the Air Forces, and where did you serve? Was it Desert Storm that you served?
Desert Storm in Somalia. I was stationed in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia during Desert Storm.
Well, thank you for your service. And as you continue to serve within the 10th District, Congressman Denham, I would like to ask you to tell us and tell our viewers a little bit about the issues that are affecting your constituents right now, whether it's immigration, whether it's taxes, healthcare. What seems to be the most sensitive subject going on right now?
By far, the biggest issue is jobs in our economy, making sure that people can find work. So many people have left the workplace and given up on finding a job, so they're not even counted in the unemployment numbers right now. So there are some good things happening. Not only here in the Central Valley, but across the entire country. Stock market has rebounded and is at an all-time high. We went from 1.9% economic growth rate to 3.4% last quarter, and we expect that to continue to rise. But getting people back willing to go out and look for a job, find a job, work, and be part of the community is a big deal. And there are a number of different issues that are involved in that. Probably one of the biggest issues is water storage, making sure that we've got an abundance of water so that we can have our number one industry, agriculture, working well and surviving and growing the fresh fruits and vegetables that we do here, but also making sure that we have an economic environment, meaning immigration reform is a big part of our economy, and then tax reform. I will go back to Washington, D.C. next week. We will have big tax cuts, both for the middle class. Everybody will receive a tax cut under this. So, I mean, it's a very exciting time. There's a lot of misinformation out there right now. But the bottom line is your tax rates will come down, and in January, you'll see more money in your paycheck. But along with that, the economic drivers are bringing the corporations back that have left our country. Many have gone to the United Kingdom, to Switzerland, to other areas around the globe where it's just a lot cheaper to do business. And if you're competing with other corporations, you go to where you can be most competitive. Well, we want to be competitive here. We want to build things. We want to make things. We want to bring those companies back and all of the money that has been offshore. So by lowering our overall rates, our corporate rates, it has been bipartisan in the past. President Obama wanted to lower our corporate rates. President Trump wants to lower our corporate rates so that we can be more competitive and bring those jobs back. My issue is I want to make sure that it's competitive for all of us. 85% of our businesses are small businesses. So if we're going to lower the corporate rate, we also have to lower the small business rate as well. We're doing both of those, and it's going to not only stimulate our economy, but it's going to get a lot of people back to work, and we'll see a growth rate that exceeds 4%.
What about healthcare, Congressman? Healthcare has been on the top conversation lately, and how it affects those who are switching insurance companies. How does that affect us here in the Valley?
It's been very frustrating. This has been such a difficult topic to tackle because our healthcare system continues to take different directions. Under the Affordable Care Act, there were a number of different policies that were put in place every 2 years, and so it has continued to change and continue to evolve. I believe that this is something that's got to get solved by both parties. Oftentimes this is one of those issues that become very, very partisan, but you can see in our community there's some good things that have happened under the Affordable Care Act. Expanding the amount of coverage is a good thing. Adding more people to Medi-Cal that have never been covered before is a good thing. The question is, how do you pay for it and make sure that it is not only affordable health care, which right now we have rising costs, but also that it's accessible. Making sure that if you're new on Medi-Cal, then you can actually go and see a doctor. Our biggest challenge with access started well before the Affordable Care Act was even a thought. We've had a shortage of doctors. We've had a shortage of doctors that will see Medi-Cal patients because we're 40th out of 50th in the country on reimbursement rates. So the state has a role in this to make sure that our reimbursement rates are high enough so that doctors will see these patients. But we still have a fundamental issue of needing more doctors here. And so I was proud that I authored the bill to increase our residency program. There's always been a big question in the Valley of how do you get a medical school here, and the medical schools don't want to come here until we have places for their graduates to be able to go work. We've now expanded the residency program, which means not only can we get medical schools here, but they will stay here, be a resident, and then ultimately become a new doctor in our community. We've got to increase the access, and that means bringing more doctors.
That's great news. That's wonderful for our youth who leave the Valley, it seems like, as soon as they find their way, to know that there are jobs here.
Yeah.
That they can go to medical school and they can practice here, and they can find jobs that have to do with agriculture and tech and other things.
Yeah, it's a community. We want our kids to go to school, to come back, and to be able to have a job right here in our community.
Absolutely. Talking about the youth, let's talk about the Dreamers. What is the latest, and what is your office doing right now that we can let our viewers know about that has to do with the latest laws affecting the Dreamers?
Well, there are a number of different bills that are on both the House and Senate floor. The DREAM Act, the Bridge Act, the RAC Act. I'm actually a co-author on all of them because I think all of them, both Republican and Democrat ideas, both House and Senate ideas, they're all so close. I think that we have to show that we're willing to support an overall solution that will solve this problem once and for all. DACA, which was an executive order under President Obama, it provided some protections, but it also allowed Dreamers to step forward, to come out of the shadows, to pass a background check, to pay a fee, and ultimately be able to, once they've graduated from high school, to be able to work in our community or go to school. I would also like to take that a step further and have them be able to serve in the military. I've been the author of the Enlist Act. The course of our history, we've always had immigrants serving side by side with us in every single war and every battle. And so I think the best way to show the ultimate act of patriotism is being willing and being able to serve in our military. So now each one of these bills that I named to solve this issue of make it a permanent resolution also include my Enlist Act. So the DREAM Act, the RAC Act, the Bridge Act all have the Enlist Act as part of that so that our Dreamers will be able to serve in the military as well. But ultimately we have to find a solution. I think we're very close, and I anticipate the first part of December we're going to have a bipartisan agreement that will not only include our end of the year funding bill, but it will create a permanent resolution for our Dreamers as well. And as you and I have talked in the past, this issue with Dreamers is not just kids that were brought here to no fault of their own across our southern border. Many kids have come across our borders, whether that's through a visitor visa or a temporary visa. that they came here, they've overstayed, they are dreamers too. So there are a number of Assyrians that are dreamers that we have to solve the problem as well. There is not, one face of dreamers. It's a variety. It's a melting pot the same way that our country is.
Absolutely. And I know your office and your staff provides a lot of information that we will share with our viewers for any information or any updated information that our laws have to do. Congressman, you have attended many events where we talk about the sensitivity of our Assyrian brothers and sisters in our ancestral homeland. You are very closely connected to community leaders that are aware of their plight. What is the latest, I don't want to say law because the immigration laws are changing, but the plight of Assyrian Christians as refugees who have been displaced by ISIS and war and conflict? What laws exist for them that on their way to the United States, particularly to our valley?
Yeah, so we're changing the immigration policy. It starts with our dreamers. That will be the first issue that we deal with and we resolve. Part of our biggest challenge that we have with dealing with immigration reform is there is no timeline, there's no deadline. Congress tends to work when something is ready to expire. Mm-hmm. It has a timeline and a deadline, and so right before we hit that deadline, you usually see Congress acting. Well, with immigration, it has been punted by one administration to the next, Republicans to Democrats. No matter who's in control, for the last 30 years, we have failed to fix our broken immigration system. And that's been frustrating because there are a lot of people that have waited years, if not decades, waited in line or waited in a foreign country, waited to become a citizen. We have to have a fair process, but we also have to have an expedient process that deals with all of our visas as well. And so during this whole immigration reform, we're reforming our visas as well. I think that it's important that we have not only travel visas, but the ability to get a permanent visa based on your family that lives here. We have a large Assyrian population. Mm-hmm. So to be able to have a family member that is willing to sponsor you, mm-hmm. But also making sure that, Assyrians are persecuted because of their religion. Yes. And it is important to pull them out of harm's way and give them a safe harbor mm-hmm. Here as well. So those are important issues, as well as the contribution to the greatness of America. So we're looking for those talents, those skills that will help a growing economy and certainly help us here in the Valley.
Thank you, Congressman. We're going to take a small break. Please stay with us.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to acknowledge and honor the life of an exemplary leader in our community, in the Turlock area, and the Assyrian community, Henry Hank Adams. The beloved husband, brother, father, and grandfather died at the age of 92 on Friday. He was born and raised in Turlock, California to Reverend Isaac and Sarah Adams. His father is known as the patriarch of Turlock's Assyrian community. Isaac encouraged his fellow Assyrians to join him in the Central Valley and farm in the rich soils of the region. And in 1943, at the age of 18, Henry graduated from Turlock High School and enlisted in the Army Air Corps. Henry completed over 20 bombing missions in Japan on the Lady Luck B-29 bomber. He was discharged at the rank of lieutenant in 1947. Henry moved to San Francisco, where he married his wife, Joanne, eventually settling down in Turlock. Henry had a genuine love for his country and his community. He's known for his service and contributions to the Assyrian community, where he continued to the legacy that his father left behind. Henry leaves behind the love of his life and his wife of 62 years, Joanne, and their two daughters, Nora Adams and Nellie Adams Morse. Mr. Speaker, please join me in honoring and recognizing the tremendous life of Henry Hank Adams for his service to his county, to his country, and his unwavering leadership and many accomplishments and contributions to the Turlock Assyrian community. God bless him always.
Hi, I'm Congressman Jeff Denham. I wanted to talk to you about something that's impacting Assyrians in our area. As we recently learned, nearly 300 Assyrian Christians were kidnapped and thousands more were driven from their homes in northeastern Syria. This news is a fresh reminder of the ongoing persecution religious and ethnic minorities are facing at the hands of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. This latest act in a campaign of terror is leading us at an ever-quickening pace to the elimination of communities that have lived in the region for over 4,000 years. We must call these practices of ISIS what they are: genocide. We must face our responsibility to act. Sadly, time is not on our side. Of the estimated 300,000 Christians left in Iraq, half are displaced from their homes. On average, 12 Christian families leave Iraq every day. The growing sectarian nature of the conflicts in Syria has placed groups like the Assyrians in an almost impossible situation. They're caught between an oppressive regime and the fanatical Islamic State. Thousands of American soldiers have bravely led the campaign to halt the advance of ISIS in Iraq and save the town of Kobani in Syria. I salute these soldiers. I also commend the generosity of the American people who've contributed more than $3 billion in humanitarian support. However, more must be done. I support taking the following actions. First, we must work through local NGOs to ensure that the money goes to the affected populations. Second, the President must immediately enter into consultation with Congress to increase the number of refugee visas available. The vast majority of Iraqis and Syrians would like nothing more to live with dignity in their homeland, but we must recognize the immediate danger faced by so many and facilitate their entry into the United States. Third, displaced citizens must have the right to reclaim their property upon return to their homes. We must impress the necessity of this right upon the Iraqi government, and Iraq must create an equitable process. We must ensure that there is a viable future for Christians and other ethnic minorities in Iraq at the end of this conflict. Fourth, it is time to recognize the failure of the Iraqi security forces to adequately protect Christians and other minority groups. Local militias must be trained for self-defense where the Iraqi state has failed. I encourage the administration to take all necessary steps to promote this training. Recently, we marked the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. At that event, world leaders gathered to declare that never again would we allow such a crime to be committed. Well, words are one thing. Action is another. It is time to act.
Here at Assyrian Auto Body in San Jose, we're one of the biggest shops in the Bay Area. We're over 100,000 square feet with over 40 employees. We can do hundreds of repairs at the same time. You can expect the best customer service and the highest quality repairs. We have an excellent working relationship with all major insurance companies. In fact, we will assist you through the process to make it easy and pain-free. We work with all major rental car companies. We have Enterprise Rent-A-Car here on site to check you in and out smoothly and quickly. One of the great things about our Assyrian Auto Body is we're a green repair facility. Our refinishing paint line is all water-based, so it's good for the environment. You can feel good about that. All of our technicians have received the best training and they have the best skills and are certified to repair your specific vehicle. Well, our Assyrian Auto Body is family owned, so because of that, you can expect personalized service from the people that own and run the business. Here at Assyrian Auto Body, we strive for 100% customer satisfaction. So come on down and see us.
خا من استخصت مطرتت خلمانت برناشا كليتلا ال ايكانايوتت خاميتا ومطرتت كيكت هافي سباي وسلامت أربايدانا سقلة ولا خموتت برسمتا كليتلا ال كماشا بير وخوارنا كيكي إيمن دقيخ وهمزومة بس قمطرتا وداخيتا وخاميتت كيكوخون تبوكون البورناست أسيا بيتر قرياقوس أسيا قرياقوس اتلنسيان تلاي شنة خقلت أسيوت كيكي تبوكون على الويب سايت drpeterk.com قموت آنوتا بوش أروختا بود تهار بريشت شولانت كي مقرفي جداها آفيس هربايدانا إن اتلوخون كتر بي تي ام جي يان خلصتا يان جرتت كيكو خون بدانت دمختا ينزل إن اتلوخون خرخرتا بقالة راما يان سليب أبنيا أسيا قرياقوس ماست هيروخون كتهاوي لوخون خداشن تشليتا وباسمتا وراحت قدانيت اتلون دنتال انشورنس اها اوفيس اتلا بلاخت كي شكلي ويذي من انشورنس كومبانيز بريشة وبتشاري كل كترت اتلوخون بس لا منشيتون قريمون المنيان التلفون 4 سيبر 8 3 8 8 4 3 4 ينتبوكون على مخوبيانيتت اشتي 5 اربيخا كراون بولوارد سويت اي سان هوزي قشقلت الدانا وتبقتا بي بورناست اسيا بيتر قرياقوس.
Welcome back to the Modern Assyrian program. We're continuing our conversation with Congressman Jeff Denham. Thank you, Congressman, so much again for...
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Continuing our conversation, I wanted to ask you about what can we watch out for, look for what Congress will be doing, and what are the topics that they'll be working on?
So the first thing we're going to take up is tax reform. These tax cuts, everybody should pay attention to. I want to know what your viewers are thinking about taxes. These tax cuts will affect everybody. It's going to lower all of the rates from 7 down to 4. It's important that people see that their standard deduction will double. So somebody who's making $70,000 today, most people in this district in our area on their standard deduction, they get $12,000 today for a family of 4. That'll double to $24,000 tax-free. That means somebody who's making $70,000 will be at the lowest tax bracket now of 12% after they do the standard deduction. But if you still want to itemize, if it makes more sense, we're also getting rid of the alternative minimum tax, the AMT. So there's going to be tax cuts across the board. But when we're talking about jobs, the biggest impact is going to be getting people back to work. So we take the corporate rate all the way down to 20% so that we're competitive across the board with other countries. We take the business rate, the small business rate, down to 25%. So that's going from 39.6 down to 25% so that our small businesses can be competitive too. It's going to be a great amount of job growth, and we will pass it next week as we go back to Washington, D.C., and expect the Senate to pass theirs with us as well. Keep an eye on this. It will take both houses, the House and the Senate, working together. Each will pass their bills, and then we'll conference the two bills together so that we can actually pass these tax cuts before Christmas. And in January, you're going to see your taxes go down. You will see more money in your take-home paycheck every single week.
That will make a lot of people happy.
It will. It will. And that's just getting started. We'll go from tax reform to dealing with our end-of-the-year funding bill, which in that we're going to solve this problem for our dreamers. And then we go into an infrastructure package. And you know we need infrastructure around here. We need to expand our roads. We need to expand our rail systems, our ports for greater goods movement so that we can do more exports out of the valley. But the biggest thing, while the rest of the country is talking about ports and roads and rail and even aviation, all of these different infrastructure projects are extremely important, but nothing like water storage. As part of this $1 trillion package, we talk a lot about user pay projects. The biggest user pay projects is, I'm a water user. We're all water users, whether you're a family or a business or agriculture. We need to use water. We pay for it. So when we build Shasta bigger, when we build Sites Reservoir, when we build Temperance Flat, when we expand our own irrigation districts, as water users, as ratepayers, we pay for that infrastructure to be put together. But what we need today is to get our federal government to do the authorization so that we can build these big projects so that we don't continue to end up in a drought year after year after year. So some exciting things happening in Washington, D.C. And I think it's important for both parties to work together on these as well, so that we can have great bipartisan solutions. Everybody needs water, so it shouldn't just be one party that's trying to push the storage through.
Absolutely, especially for us in the valley. As we
Yeah.
know, water, not only do we use it, but it really seems to be, especially with the drought that we experience. And hopefully we're coming out of the drought.
We are. I mean, we just had one of the wettest years on record. So, you know, God blessed us with a lot of rainfall, but He also expects us to save for those tough years. So we've got to have the storage to be able to do that. So now's our opportunity to expand. The other 49 states will expect us to figure out our plan first. And that's not always easy in California. 2/3 of our water comes from Northern California. 2/3 of our population is in Southern California. And so there's always this push and pull on water, and we're stuck in the middle here in the valley. We need to make sure that our water stays local so that we can have a vibrant economy and a vibrant agriculture industry as well. So some challenging times, certainly, but some big opportunities to really change the way that our community is run, the way that our state and our federal government are run.
Absolutely. Congressman Denham, in closing, I would like to ask you some questions about voter registration, especially with immigration and how that works into voter fraud has been discussed many times. How does your office deal with that? I know that when it comes to voting, it's a federal government issue.
Yes.
And what does your office do when it comes to issues that have to do with people that are turned away, for example, or that has to do with their status?
Yeah, we try to resolve them very, very quickly. I mean, somebody's right to vote, a U.S. citizen, we expect them to be able to go in to do a provisional ballot. If it's not on election day, if it's prior to election day, we work to make sure that if there are any issues that we get them resolved ahead of time. But I don't think there's anything more important than exercising your right to vote. You know, a lot of important decisions are being made, and your voice needs to be heard. We need not only to make sure that everybody registers to vote, but they actually go out to the polls. Or it's easy these days. We've made it very, very easy to do an absentee ballot. But you know, I know that people get frustrated sometimes, and they get frustrated with what's in the media or what's in the paper. You know, rather than getting disenfranchised or getting frustrated, I think that they should double down and make sure that their voice is heard so they can make changes within their own community. Find those candidates that are focused on the issues that are important to you. And let's get some more Assyrians to run for office. I mean, it's one thing to register to vote. It's another to actually go out and vote. But being willing to serve your community, being able to voice that leadership for your community are very important things.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that the Assyrian National Broadcasting, ANB SAT, does is to raise awareness. As I mentioned earlier in our conversation, is owning the citizenship, the privilege of being a United States citizen, the privilege of being able to vote. But it also has to do with responsibility. It has to do with taking it really seriously. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was exactly this, the opportunities that are there for people to run for office, to perhaps volunteer, to do internship, and to give back to the community that has embraced us so much. So to have this platform to our viewers, this media, which can be very powerful.
Very powerful, yeah.
It can be a voice of a community that didn't have a voice before. It's that opportunity for us to have this conversation, and for hundreds of thousands of Assyrians to hear you, to hear about your concerns and your knowledge and this very special relationship and connection that you have with the Assyrian community. So we are celebrating our 6th-year anniversary with Assyrian National Broadcasting, which is ANB SAT. And we are thrilled that you're here today because ANB SAT is the voice for many Assyrians locally and globally. So we're thrilled that you're here today so you can congratulate and maybe perhaps wish them a happy anniversary.
Definitely. It's special to be with you, and happy anniversary.
Thank you so much. I'd like to, in closing, again, thank you, Congressman Jeff Denham, on this very special and sacred Veterans Day, a very important day for the United States and for all who have served. And thank you again for your service. Thank you for what you do for all your constituents, including the Assyrian community. And in closing, I would like to thank all of you. Join us again on the Modern Assyrian Show. My name is Carmen Morad.